they had a certain something.
Come here, little boy.
Janet was just a natural.
Give me a beat.
She attacked the song. She sang it like she meant it.
They chased one goal relentlessly.
She was just determined, and she was like, I'm not going to fail this.
She stepped up to the plate and she let it rock.
Through struggles.
Being a celebrity, not being able to go anywhere is one thing. Her family's control and their privacy was another.
And setbacks.
She didn't want to be known as Michael Jackson's little sister out there trying to sing.
Janet was under an enormous amount of pressure to be the next Jackson star.
What have you done for me lately?
Some people are just driven. A child celebrity's defiant pursuit of superstardom.
I said, Jan, you're going to collapse. You can't do all this. And she said, yes, I can. Yes, I can.
You've got one life to live. Who's right? Who's wrong?
She knew then, I have to get out of this shell that I've been in for all these years. You know, I have something to say.
Never before seen images, stories, and revelations from the people who know what really happened.
I would cry and go, Jan, please don't go. Don't go. It's dangerous.
I would always try to convince her that everything would be okay, but really I didn't know.
Because they lived it with her.
That's what motivated her, you know, to just step up and just say, I'm going to take control.
She was like a phoenix, you know, it burned her all up, but then she just rose.
I want to be the one in control.
This is Driven, Janet Jackson.
Janet Damita Jo Jackson was born May 16th, 1966 in Gary, Indiana.
Janet's the youngest of 9 children.
When Janet came along, everybody just embraced her.
We all were used to changing diapers by then, so it wasn't a problem with changing hers.
There were so many of us, and everybody spent time with her.
Even my oldest daughter, Reedy, when she'd come home from high school, she would grab Janet and take her outside when any of her girlfriends were passing to show them her little sister.
Janet was a very sweet baby, and we used to kiss her all the time.
They were just so proud.
My parents were the perfect parents because my mother played the role of the love and the caring, and my father played the role of a sergeant.
My husband was pretty strict.
And whipping is a swat, and sometimes you would get spanked on the back, but we always kept the respect.
They had their rules, and we followed them.
You did something wrong, you got disciplined, because that was just the way it was. Religion played a very important role in our lives. Being Jehovah's Witnesses, we had those principles and those morals instilled in us at a very young age. Just giving the right foundation, not spoiling us, but at the same time, we weren't in a position to be spoiled. Those were small beginnings. My father worked at the steel mill, so we knew that in order to accomplish something, you had to work. The size of our house in Gary was the size of a 2-car garage, and there was 1 bathroom.
All the boys were in one room, and the girls slept on the sofa in the living room, and Joe and I had our bedroom with the baby crib in there.
We did everything together during those days. That's all we had was each other. When Janet was born, the Jackson 5 were just doing the club circuit and just working very hard to establishing that foundation.
I only remember my brothers performing, rehearsing, every single day.
My father always wanted us to do more and to be better. And he was there to make sure that we rehearsed, and it was never enough.
To me, it seemed like all day long. The minute they got out of school, all day until late night.
My mother would be washing the dishes, and we'd be drying them and singing harmony, singing country songs. Janet absorbed that.
I recall the brothers leaving for Detroit, 1968, to perform for Berry Gordy.
And it worked out. They enjoyed us.
Their dreams were answered, and it's like, okay, this is it.
After we got signed to Motown, we moved out to California.
Janet was only 3 at the time when we came to L.A.
We got the house and we released our first single, which was I Want You Back. Our song was all over the radio.
We were living in this huge house where all the brothers were in and everybody was there and just having loads and loads of fun.
I remember when we used to rehearse, Janet would be on the side with Randy and they would be playing on the floor and she was always there absorbing and watching.
She was backstage playing and running around and having fun.
The relationship with Janet and us was very close. We were her older brothers. We were very protective of her.
The brothers constantly stayed busy. They constantly stayed out there promoting their songs and doing concerts.
I remember going on tour and Janet staying behind and asking my mother, when are we coming back? How long are we going to be gone?
We were always crying, saying goodbye to them and kissing everybody goodbye and dying for them to come home.
It was very hard for Janet to be away from us because we were like her babysitter, her friend, her older siblings, and she looked up to us.
It's sad when your brothers, when they leave, it takes something out of you. It's like a part of your heart has left.
Janet used to watch our cartoons. That's how we had the connection. She could still hear the songs and what we were doing. Those stories were taken from things that happened in the studio.
Wow, that was fantastic, fellas.
You have like everybody around and then everybody's gone. You don't know what to get used to.
We experienced that quite a bit. And I think Jan had a lot of sad times during that time.
The first time I met Janet was back in elementary school. I seem to remember that there were very few minority students at the school.
Almost every day she'd come home crying. The kindergartners there weren't used to black children. They didn't want to hold her hand. They'd tell her she was dirty.
And just feeling different, being, extremely famous family and being, in a predominantly white neighborhood, it must have been hard.
But then she got to like the school, and she got little friends that would come over here and play with her.
She was the shyest, most introverted little girl. You wouldn't know that she was from the Jackson 5 necessarily, except for her name.
What's your name, little sister?
Janet.
How do you like being a part of Jackson 5?
I like it.
What do you do?
I sing and dance.
1974 is when Jan made her debut, and that was at the MGM Hotel in Las Vegas.
Janet!
My father wanted to take the brothers in a slightly different direction, so he put Janet in the group.
Janet! What you want?
She had been 7 or 8. When we played Las Vegas, Janet did a take on Mae West.
Come here, little boy.
That was her first experience really on stage and performing, and she was wonderful.
She enjoyed her part because her part was a little sassy part.
Oh, my sweet baby, you're the one.
After the Vegas show, a few years later, we made a show called The Jacksons.
It's The Jacksons!
The Jackson Show premiered in 1976. Just a variety show when the kids would do some of their songs with their little dance moves.
Ladies and gentlemen, Donnie and Marie.
I'm a little bit country,
And I'm a little bit rock and roll.
She just seemed so different, and it was just amazing to see her like that and come on the show and kind of like take over.
If you were a dance, you'd be the chair.
Janet enjoyed doing the TV show we did because it was a family show, and the joy and the excitement of doing skits together and everything.
She was happy to be with her brothers. She loved it.
The show was canceled, but the influence that we put on Janet was a good one because it was something that she saw us doing, and she felt that she could do the same thing.
Good night, everybody!
Janet really enjoyed performing with the family, very much so.
She always wanted to do what they were doing, so she got to be part of it.
I'd like you all to meet a beautiful, talented, and charming young lady, my sister, Janet Jackson.
Sometimes you see a musical performance, say, there's an actress there. And that's what clicked, meeting Janet.
Janet went down to audition for Good Times.
When Janet came in to audition for the role of Penny in Good Times, she walks in, there's a kind of earnestness, desire to play a role, and I asked her if she could cry.
He told her he wanted her to do a skit where she had given her father a tie for Christmas, and he didn't like the tie.
And Janet picked up the script and managed in the course of a reading to cry.
And Jan got the part.
When Janet Jackson walked out of the room, I said, that's Penny.
Jan's first episode I thought was absolutely wonderful. It made me cry.
I won't be a bad girl anymore. Please, I promise. Please. Oh, no, Mama, please.
It was all new to her in the very, very beginning, and she wasn't so comfortable.
It was something that was a little bit scary for her. So when she was off camera, you could just feel that sigh of relief. I got through that.
Hey, how could you burn yourself like that?
I tripped over my pussycat and I fell against the stove. And there was a pot cooking with hot chocolate. And it spilled all over my arm with marshmallows.
She carried a lot of dramatic weight with this character. You know, we had to rely on Janet to deliver that.
Honestly, Mama, I didn't tell him anything. I didn't say a word. I didn't tell him anything.
Tell him about what? What would you have to tell them?
As we went along, she started to gain confidence and start to really believe me and others who were saying, Janet, you are really good.
She was going to public school when she wasn't shooting Good Times.
We attended Portola Junior High in Tarzana, California, and some of the kids treated her differently.
At that point, you know, she had had her own celebrity. So girls wanted to pick fights, you know, oh, she thinks she's all of that because she's on Good Times.
She was harassed and she was pushed around a lot.
You know, kids can be cruel.
I can't imagine trying to blend in and being a Jackson. Must have been rough on her.
It got out of hand, you know.
I said, that's it. You're going to private school.
Valley Professional was a smaller environment.
It was a school geared for kids that were pursuing something in either sports or in entertainment.
She loved the school, and she made friends.
My first impression of Janet was that she was very shy. She was pure, and she was sweet.
I just happened to sit right near her, and she was, you know, hi, how are you?
She was so, you know, Pollyanna-ish in a sense. A lot of us in high school were cursing. We'd use the F word, right? Well, not Janet. Janet would say, oh, fudge.
Oh, fudge. It was like the worst thing she could say. And, goodness. Oh, goodness.
I knew deep down inside she wanted to, like, bust out and have fun.
It was difficult to be friends with Janet outside of school, given how sheltered she was.
A lot of us were kind of wild, you know, teenagers, and we would hang out and stay out late, but not Janet.
If we wanted to just, like, go to the mall, most of us, it was no big deal. But with Janet, it was a big production.
I think she had very strict rules in their household.
The one person that had an iron fist on her that she was afraid of was Joe.
Everybody was a little afraid of Joe because he was a little more aggressive than maybe the average person.
Joe, having such a strong hold, made sure nobody came to the house.
I always thought this was funny. I never went to her home. They didn't allow too many people to come up to the house.
Brian Mancini and I tried to stop by.
And I got up to the guard station, and I said, I want to talk to Janet. And he goes, yeah, right.
And all you could think of was this poor little girl sheltered away, looking out the window, not being able to see us.
Yeah, she was pretty much locked up in those gates with those guards in front of those gates, and it's no kind of life for anyone. A lot of people weren't allowed to be in that house because Michael was still living there.
At that point in time, Off the Wall was huge, and I lived for the album. Everybody did.
There were times when, like, almost crazy people or, like, stalkers would be at the gates.
There had to have been about 80 to 100 people all hiding out.
Michael was huge.
Michael couldn't make it tonight. He's in the Caribbean. This is really great.
Janet was very much overshadowed by her brother.
Being from the Jackson family and pursuing your own career was a bit daunting for her because she had to prove her own talents. She didn't want to ride on the coattails of her brothers.
She wanted to try to make it as an actor first and to prove that she can make it on her own.
By the time Janet landed Diff'rent Strokes, she was kind of an established sitcom actress. She's probably like 14.
She felt a lot more comfortable being on a set and doing that kind of work, and she was a lot more confident.
Janet was just a natural. She was an actress that thought about her dialogue and, and felt everything she said.
Willis, we can't go back the way it was.
Oh, don't worry, Charlene. I promise you, I'll never take it for granted again.
You mean that?
I really do.
I felt like Janet grew up on Diff'rent Strokes and going through the same thing on the show that she was probably going through in life.
Going through puberty as a girl, developing breasts and curves, it's very difficult, let alone when the world is watching.
Suddenly she was no longer a little girl, but she was actually becoming a woman, and the other students noticed she was becoming a woman.
There was this, this sweater, cashmere sweater, I remember her wearing, that just, Janet.
I developed a crush on her.
Everyone had a crush on Janet at one point in time. I did, for sure.
She did have boys interested in her, but she really was very selective about whose attention she would return.
I think she needed that like one person that she could confide in and be close to and, feel safe with.
When I first met Janet, I was around 18 years old, and she was 15 or 16. Of course, I thought she was cute.
But I think part of the attraction between Janet and James DeBarge was the fact that they both came from large musical families.
Jan had a keen interest in James. I said, Jan, what is it that you like about him? She goes, he's just a nice, sincere person.
It wasn't easy for us to see each other, being that she was underage and very well protected.
I would say things to James, that's my little sister, and you gotta be good.
When I first started dating Janet, we would sneak and see each other.
Janet's relationship with James pretty much was a secret.
They were secretive because we knew that certain things weren't allowed.
We found a way. When two people love each other, it's really like you forget the rules.
It was always, don't tell. I said, okay, I won't. You promise? I go, Janet, I'm not going to say a word, just do it.
And it's not that I was intentionally disrespecting their mom and dad. It's just that I felt like I had no control anymore of the love that I had for her, and I just had to be with her all the time. I think Janet was just being guided by her father, and I don't think she really had a voice at that time.
And I think she rebelled against that. She wanted to be her own person.
My dad dictated what was going to be done.
Joe didn't let her really live any kind of a life because he had his mind of what her future was going to be.
When she was doing Diff'rent Strokes, Janet was in the 9th grade and basically trying to figure out who she was going to be as a young girl.
Her passion was acting. She really loved acting and wanted to pursue that.
Of course, my father intervenes again and says, I want you to sing.
Come on, give him a sample. Sing with this cassette.
Willis, they don't want to hear me sing.
The strategy that he had at the time is just keep her visual, get her some experience.
The magic is working.
I remember one episode where she did a duet with Todd Bridges. It was one of the hardest scenes that we ever shot with her because she was so sort of shy and not very confident musically.
Janet hadn't completely come out of her shell yet.
Changed my life. You're such a charm.
She was very skeptical, a little insecure about the strength of her singing voice and what would people say because she was coming from such a prominent singing family.
There were a lot of expectations.
She was still a Jackson, and I think that's why she felt this need to really prove herself.
Janet was under an enormous amount of pressure to be the next Jackson star.
Janet recorded her first record mainly because she was kind of prodded by her father.
When I signed Janet, I'd never heard her sing, but she had the Jackson name. So what we had to do is then figure out, how do you take this known entity and now move it into music?
Janet just took the back seat, just letting everyone else tell her what she should do and how she should do it.
Janet's first album was called Janet Jackson, and the hit song was Young Love.
It's Janet Jackson.
My mouth just hit the floor because there she was dancing and singing, and I know how shy she is, so you could really see the true Janet emerging.
The first album sold about 150,000 units.
She was disappointed in the end results, and the one thing we knew is that we had failed an artist, and artists had not failed us.
I thought her first album wasn't who she was yet. She hadn't came out of her shell yet.
Janet is a very competitive, determined person, and she was day one. Inside of her was that I can do a lot better than I've done.
Janet definitely felt a lot of pressure on her having to live up to, you know, being Michael's little sister.
I think once she seen Michael with the whole Thriller thing and the numbers that it hit, that's kind of put a spark into Janet. And I think from there on she knew, okay, one day I'm going to top that record.
It certainly drove her to strengthen herself as a singer, but also just be almost obsessed with developing the other areas that made the complete package. Fame came about because it was a show looking for singers and dancers and actors, and she certainly could do all of that.
She was a little younger than the rest of the cast, and I'm sure that there was a lot put on her shoulders.
She would be on the set with professional dancers, and Janet wasn't at that level. Haven't had all that training. A lot of times she would fall on her face. She didn't care if people laughed at her. It didn't stop her.
She's a competitor. When the director said action, she stepped up to the plate and she let it rock. The thing was an excruciating schedule. If you're not shooting, then you're going to the recording studio to record the music, to going to the rehearsal hall to rehearse.
The hours and the way that the show was done, it just was sometimes just unnatural.
I had a tough enough time just doing the show, and knowing that she was doing an album and going to school, that's next to impossible.
Janet disappeared for many months while she was doing Fame, but did finally manage to graduate from high school in 1984.
I was really proud of her, and I wanted her to go further in education. But since she had a chance at show business, she was jumping at it.
We're now getting ready to go record the second album, and the pressures were really felt.
When the first album didn't do not so much what Jan expected, but just my father and the people involved, Jan said, okay, I'll do another one, and I'll do better.
We just knew that we had this very talented young girl. Now we just had to make the right record.
She pretty much poured herself into her work.
She was a little more serious about Dream Street.
Even though she would have her input, she'll sit back and let everyone, including her father, speak on how she should come across. They put her in the studio and they were like, sing this way, sing that way. Once the package was delivered, she knew this wasn't the direction that she wanted to go in, and she felt that this is not me.
The second one sold about 130, so it was even less than the first.
Janet and Joe both knew that Dream Street could be better.
When Dream Street wasn't successful, I do remember her feeling depressed.
I can just remember her saying that, you know, she's going to take control and become the person that she thought she can be, as opposed to following in someone else's footsteps.
She wanted to have her own identity and make those decisions and do the things that she wanted to do for her life and for her career. She wanted to become her own person.
Jan calls me on the phone, and she says, I have to tell you something. She goes, I'm gonna get married.
Janet was 18 and I was 21 when we decided to elope.
She goes, promise me you won't tell. I said, I won't tell, but are you sure? I said, Jan, you're so young. And she said, this is what I want to do. This is what I want. I'm leaving tonight, and we're getting married.
And we flew back to Grand Rapids, Michigan, where my uncle married us in his office in the church.
My family's out there on the road knowing nothing about it.
Me and Janet decided to elope because we're young and you have someone that you love so much. All we knew was what we felt inside. At that time, that's all that mattered. Me and Janet decided to elope because we were just so in love with each other that we began to block everyone else out.
They knew that my parents didn't condone it, so it's like, okay, we'll sneak off and do it.
It was something that I thought was going to be secret. But the press has its way of finding out. It made it back home before we did. It was on the news. It was everywhere.
I was shocked when Jan eloped because she still seemed like a little girl to me.
Here was a girl that had been so sheltered and protected, and I was thinking, how did that happen? I don't think her parents were really thrilled about her running off and getting married.
When your baby decides to just up, jump, and get married, it's a hard pill to swallow.
The family felt Janet was too young to be married.
We probably should have waited, and I should have been more prepared. I had asked myself, did we do the right thing? And I was just scared to death.
When Jan married James, they moved out the house.
We moved out for like a month. Yeah. If I wasn't on the road, she was on the road. So the house never even had time to put furniture in it.
That was her first go at it of being on her own.
Me and Janet, we were both busy, and it wasn't easy for us to see each other. We were both dealing with the struggles of the record business. Love needs nourishing, and to nourish something, you got to be there to feed it for it to grow.
Jan and James moved back into the house at Havenhurst, and we knew that there was something wrong.
I was having trouble dealing with life and what was on my plate, being a celebrity, being married to a celebrity. And I didn't have anyone to guide me.
They're both across from my room, and I would hear strange noises, like he's crying, and it's like, what's going on there?
Drugs is something that I went to. Sleeping pills, pain pills. I got hooked on them. At that time, it was something I went to for comfort.
James would wander out the room sometimes and fall down the stairs and just cry. And we knew that he had a serious problem.
Basically, I just wanted to fall asleep and wake up and this would be all over.
I said, Jan, does he have a problem? Is he doing drugs? And Jan may not recall this, but she became quite mean, meaning, we're fine, leave us alone. Because she was protecting him and she didn't want anybody to know.
Janet did whatever she felt she had to do that would help me. I was never questioned about where I was at or what I was doing or who I was doing it with.
I would hear her going, what street are you on? What corner? What phone booth? Look around. And at 3 in the morning, Jan would get in her Mercedes and she would get him. She would put him in the car.
I don't think that there was any length that she wouldn't go through.
I would cry and go, Jan, please don't go. Don't go, it's dangerous.
She was always at the door with her arms stretched out. And all she really cared about is that he's home.
At the time, she was doing Fame, and she had to be there on the set, and I think it was 4 or 5 in the morning, and she would have to wake him up, and she'd drag him to the set with her.
I would go to Fame with her almost every morning and sleep in the trailer.
I remember seeing the bars around the set a couple of times, and it just seemed like everything was cool, and she just took everything in stride.
And she'd go out there and do her dance routine and her acting, then come back to the trailer and make sure he was okay. And I said, Jan, you're gonna collapse. You can't do all this. And she said, yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I I would always try to convince her that everything would be okay, because I wanted everything to be okay. But really, I didn't know. I didn't know.
She wanted it to work out, but I think it became too much for her. It really did.
It didn't last very long. We decided to get annulment.
She said, "This is it. I'm done. I can't take it anymore."
I think it was the right love at the wrong time. I think I had some growing up to do.
She was hurt because Janet was young and she really cared a lot for James.
He didn't treat her well at all. Not how Janet deserved to be treated.
I didn't intentionally want to hurt anyone. Those weren't my intentions. That's not what was in my heart.
It was a very tragic experience for Janet.
But being that she is the strong person that she is, she held her head up high and moved forward.
At that point, she felt like she had to take control of everything. Her personal life, her career.
She wanted her life back. And she was, that's it, I want to take control, and she did.
Because of all the crap that she went through, it allowed her to basically have a resolve. She was like a phoenix, you know, it burned her all up, but then she just rose.
She had bigger aspirations than just staying on fame for the rest of her career. She just knew it was time for her and her career to step up and move on.
Deep down, she knew she wanted to be an artist.
She dropped the acting and really focused on her music career at that point. She thought, maybe I need to really just give this all of my attention.
Her father was controlling her career at that point, but she wanted to try something herself to see how far she could go on her own.
I hired a young, very talented, energetic, pointed executive by the name of John McClain.
John McClain was the head of A&R for black music for A&M Records.
John McClain and her really hit it off, and she expressed her personal concerns about what path she would like to blaze for herself outside of the legacy.
She knew she had it inside of her, and so did everyone else around her. But it was a matter of getting her with the right producers and the right people that can pull it out.
Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, they were former members of the group The Time, which was an incredible group.
We were just bringing something new to the industry at that time. We were just the new kids on the block.
It was the beginning of Janet's being with producers that understood how to mold her and how to find out what was there and to give it space to grow.
We recorded the record in Minneapolis.
Jan going to Minneapolis was really the beginning of Jan's independence.
I was worried by her being away from home.
Joe wasn't really a part of anything. It wasn't about the family at that point at all. It was more about herself, what she needed to get off her chest, and we were happy that we were able to, help her do that. The approach that we took toward the record was really getting to know her.
She was not in a good place, so our whole object was to get her in a better place.
We started going out on the town and just trying to kick it around.
Jimmy wanted Janet to go see movies. They go eat together. We go hang out at clubs.
They would take her to the local cafe and said, "No, you're going to ride in a truck like everybody else."
We took her in some real situations with some real people. And we just left her to fend for herself.
We were kind of like maybe the rogue big brothers that cussed and swore.
Jim and Terry and me being urban street like we are, and here's this nice little girl around these gangsters, basically.
If she was mad about something, she'd say, "Gosh darn it."
We'd look at her crazy, too.
And we'd be like, "Janet, you're mad. Just, come on. You can say it." She said, I can't.
They knew she was shy, and this was their way to get her to speak out, and she did.
And that's how a lot of the ideas for Control were born.
I think at the beginning, there was the idea of, I know what I want to say, but I don't exactly know how to say it.
She would tell Jimmy something, and he would just write around that experience.
Which gave way to, here's how I'm going to say this. That's when, the Control, Nasty, What Have You Done For Me Lately, the more funky, aggressive songs happen.
The aggressive side of Janet was that she can tell you off a little bit. She'll speak her mind when provoked.
She knew then, you know, okay, wait a minute, I have to get out of this shell that I've been in for all these years. You know, I have something to say.
I remember when Jan first brought the album home to play it.
I'm sure she probably was a little bit, worried.
Not everybody was completely happy.
And my husband wasn't too satisfied with it at first.
When I was 17, I did what people told me. Mr. Jackson was, he was surprised. And I remember him saying, oh, okay. So she's in control now.
Did what my father said and let my mother mold me. They didn't like the expression, control, because they knew what she was picking up. So that was hitting home, of course.
It was talking about she was controlling her own life. There was nothing wrong with that, but it just, to me, it was sort of sassy. I guess I'm old-fashioned from the old school.
Now I'm all grown up.
That was a defining moment for her to be able to let not only her parents know, but the world know too. It's like, hey, this is how it's going to be done now, and I don't care how you guys look at it, what you guys think about it. I'm my own woman.
Was a pivotal point in Jan's, not only her life, but her career. Going through what she did with James and my father, she put it all into that album, and that's what Control was about.
The reason why we named it Control is because I'm taking more control of my life now.
She just really established herself as being her own woman, hence the whole title of the album. Boom. Control.
I wanna be the one in control. Control was released in '86.
It hit the airwaves and the dance floors.
And that thing just exploded.
It was a major hit.
And we went on and on and on, single after single, 5 top 10 hit singles.
It sold in excess of 10 million units worldwide.
Stop! It's like, okay, so this is Janet. Give me a beat! This is not the shyest little girl we thought.
And then bam, I said, what is that? What happened to her? She just transformed into this sexy, beautiful woman.
And you had a Janet that had a whole nother twist to it, and it was like, wow, she looked beautiful, amazing.
You just knew that there was no going back at that point and that she was going to be a star.
Control was the album that established Janet as a superstar in her own right.
That wasn't Joe saying, sing. That was her saying, I want to sing.
It wasn't about Michael, it wasn't about the Jacksons, none of them. It was about Janet.
This is a story about control. My control. Control of what I say and control of what I do. And this time I'm gonna do it my way.
She was ready to take her career to another level.
My father is really great for starting people off and getting you going in the whole bit. But Jan had gotten to a point where she felt that I need more.
The decision for Janet to leave Mr. Jackson's management was probably the hardest thing she's ever done.
That was her way of saying, look, I'm grown up. I'm making my own decisions. And whether they fail or not, I'm responsible for it. I am in control.
It's never easy, even as a parent, for a father or a mother to let go their baby. But I think at the end of the day, he understood.
He may not have liked it, but I'm sure he had to respect that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Janet Jackson.
We performed with Janet at the Grammys in 1987.
Give me a beat.
And I remember it like it was yesterday.
I knew that if we did this right, it was going to be a huge night.
It was total, all-out energy, start to finish.
It was one of the most phenomenal performances I've ever seen. Every move was so precise.
She knew it was like you got to turn it out. And that she did.
last sound hit and we posed to end the song, everybody in the audience jumping up, giving a standing ovation. And I was like, yeah, that's my girl right there. She threw it down.
We knew then, like, this is it. This is it. You're going straight to the top.
Since that day, she hasn't looked back. It's been Janet, Janet, Janet.
She's a born performer, and when you have that in you, it's the love of music, it's the love of what you do that gives you that drive.
Janet's gonna constantly push the envelope, push herself musically.
She's gonna keep reaching and keep striving for excellence.
She has the talent and the gift to do it all. And she has done it and will continue.
She knows what she wants, and she goes after it. And I'm very proud of her for that, because I've seen her suffer a great deal.
The biggest obstacles to Janet were the expectations of following in the footsteps of her family and proving to the world that she was a star in her own right. And sure enough, she proved that.
In show business, or music business, she has achieved a lot. And she's my baby. If she hadn't done them, I'd still be proud of her.